All right, so every year around this time, the question is asked, do teams draft for need or best available player? And I think the answer is always best available player, but it's best available player with a few twists. For the 49ers this year, when you're talking about the 11th overall pick, yes, there is a need, and the 49ers have kind of backed themselves into a corner more than they ever have as far as having needs at virtually every position. So I guess there's a kind of a wide range where they can go with this pick at number 11, assuming they stay at number 11. What would cause them or what would create the possibility where they could move back and get more draft picks? I don't know that they need any more than 11 picks, but maybe if you can accumulate more picks in the middle rounds, and then you can use some of the late round picks to move up and get players when you kind of eyeball that they're falling or somebody that the 49ers really like is there, then that certainly is a possibility for them to pull off that kind of draft day strategy. But when you look at where the 49ers are right now with the roster, and it's really difficult to find a position where they don't need some help. One position that comes to mind, of course, would be quarterback. They're set there as far as their number one, Brock Purdy, their number two, Mac Jones, and they even have a number three, Tanner Mordecai, who spent last year on the practice squad. Could they add an undrafted rookie? Obviously, that would probably be the way to go. Although in the seventh round, they could take a flyer on a guy at, I don't know, say 262, somebody like they got in Brock Purdy a few years back. But that position may be safety, but not really. When I look at where the 49ers are at the safety position, they have three guys with starting experience, two young guys, one guy who's a little bit more of a veteran. That's Jason Pinnock coming over from the Giants. But with Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa and Jason Pinnock, I wouldn't say that safety is a huge need for this team. Although, if you get a safety and he's a backup safety, he's also going to make a contribution on special teams. So when you look at where the 49ers could go at number 11, I really do think it is best player available. And if that best player is, I don't know that the best player would be a wide receiver. So I would scratch that off the list. There's one guy that I could think of at tight end who could be there, especially when you think about what the future might hold for George Kittle, where he is, what his contract situation is with Trey McBride getting a big money deal from the Arizona Cardinals. So, probably an outside possibility that they could go tight end there at number 11. But if you're looking at offensive line, absolutely. Defensive line, yes. Linebacker, maybe a little bit more of a stretch unless you consider someone like Jalen Walker or Jihad Campbell, somebody who could play linebacker, but then also rush the passer in nickel situations. Cornerback, yeah, I do believe so. Even though, the guy you take at number 11 has to be a starter, I would think, from day one. And they would get that at defensive tackle or edge rusher at the very least with an edge rusher, maybe a situational pass rusher, a guy who's out there on nickel downs. Yetur Gross-Matos is a pretty good option for the 49ers as a base defensive end who would slide inside and rush the passer in nickel situations. But whoever you get there, if you get a defensive lineman, he's going to see a lot of playing time. And if it's a defensive tackle, he's got to be probably an every down defensive tackle. If you're going to get an offensive lineman at 11, he's going to be a starter year one, more than likely at tackle. Although you could get a guy like, or you could get a player at number 11 and start him off at guard as well. But I think if you don't get that offensive lineman at number 11, you're not going to get a starter if you're the 49ers out of this draft. So then you look later on and you start to take somebody that you could develop to be a starter down the road. And the guys that I'm thinking about, one name that comes to mind is Logan Brown from Kansas. Seemed to be a good fit for the 49ers. Might be able to get him in the third, fourth, fifth round. Ozzie Trapello from Boston College is a guy that could be there that they would take. Chase Lund from UConn, Charles Grant from William and Mary. There are offensive line possibilities. Drew Kendall from BC, Tate Ratledge from Georgia. So those are some of the names that come out there as far as the offensive lineman. But I maintain that if the 49ers don't take an offensive lineman at number 11, then they will run it back with by and large the same offensive line as last year. The only difference being at left guard, where they need to find a left guard to replace Aaron Banks. But it certainly sounds like the 49ers feel like they have some pretty good options on their roster now between Ben Barch, Spencer Burford, Nick Zakel, and Matt Hennessy. If you read, you don't even have to read between the lines as far as what they said about Jake Brendel at center, a guy that looking at the PFF grades, was middle of the pack. 49ers do not believe there are any better options. They believe that Jake Brendel is pretty clearly the top guy for that position within the organization. And then it's a matter if they draft some guy who could be a center down the road, it wouldn't be year one. It would be down the road as far as taking a player on the second day or the third day of the NFL draft. As I mentioned, defensive line, the first two guys they take are going to be solid players, or at least solid contributors, are going to be counted upon to be guys who play a lot. And that's a good thing about the defensive line is, you just don't line up four guys and those four guys play, 100% of the snaps. There's a constant churn of defensive linemen. So if they take two defensive linemen, that strengthens the depth of the team, because right now when you look at it, it's Nick Bosa, Yetur Gross-Matos at the defensive ends. It's Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens at the defensive tackles. And then after that, who do you have? Sam Okawanu, Kalia Davis, Evan Anderson, Robert Beal. So there's an opportunity for the 49ers to add at least two good defensive linemen who can then just move up the depth chart and bump some of those guys down. I've been asked about Drake Jackson. I still think it's found money if Drake Jackson is able to come back from that severe leg injury that he had and the surgery that he had. Just, it wasn't a rosy outlook that John Lynch painted of Drake Jackson and his recovery when we talked to him at the NFL Scouting Combine in February. Now, the other positions, cornerback is definitely in play at number 11 overall. I think they have their start. I know they have their starters with Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green. And they think they feel okay about some of the other cornerbacks on the roster, Trey Brown, Chase Lucas, and Darrell Luter. However, if they have an opportunity, and again, if they believe that the best person on the board is, say, Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson. Will Johnson has some history with injuries, missed a lot of games last year, has been kind of aced out of the pre-draft process due to injuries. But if they think that the best player available is there, then I think they would have to take him. Now, at some point, that third cornerback is a guy who plays 67% of the time and is also a guy who's out there for those money down. So it does pay off to have three really good cornerbacks. Also, the attrition at that position, it's rare that a cornerback makes it through the entire season unscathed. So those are some of the spots where if they take a player at 11, it's going to be a starter. They have to get a starter out of that spot. Now, also, another position where the 49ers could need some help, but I don't know if it's a high priority, would be linebacker. They have Fred Warner. They wanted to bring back Dre Greenlaw. That didn't happen. So the 49ers do have four linebackers who I think are capable of playing and playing a lot, but they're young guys who have to develop. D. Winters last year got a pretty significant taste of action. They're going to need him to make a big jump. Curtis Robinson is a guy that they've liked so much that they've kept him around for several years. They really like him, but he's coming off an ACL injury. He's responding well and could be available when the season starts. Tatum Bethune, but another position there, linebacker, where if you take a guy, he's going to have the opportunity to contribute at the very least on special teams. So, all those spots wide open, and it comes down to what the board says. The 49ers have a lot of wiggle room as far as the positions that they could take at number 11, because whoever it is, whatever position, more than likely they have a need there. And any player that they would take at number 11 and they think that highly of would certainly be viewed as an immediate starter. But if the 49ers, just going back to offensive line, if they wait, if they don't take an offensive lineman at 11, more than likely it would be for a player that they envision as having the capabilities of developing into a starter down the road. But just about any other place, I guess tight end would be the spot. I've mentioned Tyler Warren in the past, with George Kittle there, with Luke Farrell there, and then three other guys who could be the third guy, such as Jake Tongas, Braden Willis, and Mason Pline. 49ers seem to be all right there. That would certainly be a luxury pick and not necessarily a position of need, but a position where they think that they probably already have enough good players there or enough players to fill out their depth chart. But if they were to take somebody there, it would have to be a game-changing player, a player that they view as a game changer. And that is the kind of criteria the 49ers are looking to add with that 11th pick. When I asked John Lynch, what are you looking for at number 11? He said just that, a guy who can change the game, impact the game. 49ers have a lot of options, and we'll continue to talk about so many of those options as we move forward with the NFL, the 2025 NFL draft just a couple weeks away.